system. Endocrine system consists of hypothalamus. Where do you find hypothalamus? It's a part of the brain. Hypothalamus, it's a part of the brain. On the hypothalamus, you find a gland, pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is a master gland. It controls all other glands. And we have a tiny gland here, which is in straight line with the eye. This is called pineal gland. And on the neck, above the thyroid cartilage, you find thyroid gland. And behind the thyroid, you find parathyroid. And there is thymus. Where do you find thymus? We have a bone here known as sternum. On the top of the sternum, you find thymus. Thymus is very active in our teenage. And later, after teens, like in 20s and 30s, it starts regressing, gets smaller in size, reduces in size. And on the small intestine, duodenum, you find pancreas. That's a pancreas, leaf-like organ, which with two functions. It releases enzymes and produce hormones. On the top of the kidney, that's a kidney. On the top of the kidney, there is a cap-like structure. This cap-like structure, both the kidneys have a cap-like structure on the top. That's known as adrenal gland. And females have ovary. Ovary too produce hormones and eggs. And testicles, testes in male. And during pregnancy, placenta is formed. Even placenta is an endocrine gland as it secretes hormones. And in the gastrointestinal tract, means intestine, stomach, there are many hormones produced. Liver can produce hormones. Kidney produces hormones. Even heart can produce the hormones. So this chapter will be talking about all different kinds of hormones produced by the endocrine system. That's the location of the pineal body or pineal gland. Okay? Pineal gland is located on epithalamus. The part where it's located is known as epithalamus. And that's the thalamus. On the thalamus, you find the pineal gland. Below the thalamus, you find hypothalamus. Okay? Pineal gland is above the thalamus. It's called epithalamus. And this is below the thalamus, so hypothalamus. On the hypothalamus, you find the second gland. So inside the brain, there are two glands, pituitary gland and the pineal gland. Pituitary gland is on hypothalamus and pineal gland is on epithalamus. Okay, there you can see the pituitary gland. And this part is hypothalamus. That's the hypothalamus. And these are the lobes of pituitary gland. That's lobe 1, that's lobe 2, and lobe 3. Okay. And lobe 1 is called pars distalis. What is it? Pars distalis. Lobe 1, the middle lobe is called pars intermedia, and this is called pars nervosa. Okay. They also call this anterior lobe. Anterior lobe. This is called posterior lobe, and this one is the middle lobe. Okay, so these are the three lobes. And what are the three lobes? Pars distalis, pars intermedia, pars nervosa. You have to learn both the names. Okay, so what is pars pars distalis? Pars distalis is anterior lobe. Anterior lobe, the middle lobe, intermediate between the two. Distal one, and this is nervosa. Okay, so these are the three lobes of pituitary gland. Okay, so again, you look at this. That's the hypothalamus. And in the hypothalamus, you will find neurons. And some of the neurons are specialized to produce hormones. So these are hypothalamic neurons. What hypothalamic neurons? These neurons have the ability to produce hormones. Okay, so these hormones begin here, and it sends the hormone molecule. Those black dots represents hormone molecule directly into the capillary network of the portal circulation. So those molecules enter here, the bloodstream in the capillary. Okay. So here you find a portal system. What's a portal circulation? Usually what's a normal circulation? Artery, you have an artery. It branches into capillary, and then it turns into vein. This is the usual system. Okay. So in portal system, you might find artery changes to capillary vein, and vein might change again back into capillary. So this is a portal system. Now, portal system help the molecules to come out of the capillary. Okay, so the molecules are uh, coming from the hypothalamus, and where do they come from? They come through the neurons. Tip of the neurons releases. Okay, tip of the neurons release these neurohormones. Okay, hormones produced by um, hormones produced by the neurons are called neurohormones. Usually, neurons should not produce hormones; they conduct um, impulses. But in this case, they are not conducting impulses. Instead, they are producing hormones. Okay, these hormones enter the capillaries of portal circulation. Okay, and uh, and in the portal circulation, you find a network of capillaries. Okay, and these capillaries later turn into vein. Okay, and that's the vein. This is the stalk of the pituitary gland. In the stalk of pituitary gland, it forms a vein, and after forming a vein, it again forms another capillary network. See, there are two capillary networks here. So this is a usual system. What's a normal system? Artery turns into capillary. So here you find an artery. Blood enters from the artery to this capillary network, and then it goes to vein, again goes to capillary, then it goes to the vein. Okay, so here this cap vein produces, I mean, the artery produces capillary, capillary produces vein, vein again produces a capillary network that changes back to vein. And this is hypophyseal, uh, hypophyseal portal system. They call this hypophyseal portal system. What's a portal system? In a portal system, you find the veins turn into capillaries and changes back to vein again. So they call this secondary capillaries. These are the secondary capillaries, and these are known as the primary capillary. So what's the benefit of this kind of branching? Okay, and it helps neurons to release hormones into the capillaries. Remember, only capillaries can take up the hormones because they are permeable. And through these capillaries, hormones enter the blood and is transported to the anterior lobe. And in the anterior lobe, hormones comes out from the capillaries again. This is the reason for two capillary network. The first capillary network, what does it do? Receive the hormone. Hormone enters this network and is transported to the second network. In the second network, from the capillary, the hormone comes out. And this hormone produce effect on anterior pituitary gland. Anterior pituitary gland. And this is hypophyseal portal system, right? Hypophyseal portal system help to transport neurohormone. What's a neurohormone? Hormone produced by the neurons. So we'll call this neurohormone. Neurohormones, hormones produced by the hypothalamic neurons, enters the capillary network. Okay, enter the capillary network, and then it's transported to the second capillary network, where hormones come out of the blood and produce its effect on anterior pituitary. Okay, so this is only for anterior pituitary. Look at posterior pituitary. In the posterior pituitary, uh, which is called pars nervosa, in posterior pituitary, there's no such portal system. Instead, the neurons extend into posterior pituitary and release hormones, neurohormones, directly in the posterior pituitary. So there you can see a difference between anterior or pars distalis and pars nervosa. Means anterior pituitary gland has a portal system to deliver hormones to the anterior pituitary gland, but the posterior one doesn't have this portal system. Instead, the hypothalamic neurons extend into the posterior pituitary and directly release the hormones in the posterior pituitary gland. Okay. Hope you understood this. Okay, how about why we didn't talk much about the middle part? If you go back, you can see there is middle lobe, pars intermedia. It's highly reduced. Okay, and the functions we don't study much. So that's why we are focusing on only pars distalis and pars nervosa. Okay, so what do you find in pars distalis? There is hypophyseal portal system. And this portal system collects hormones in capillary network and release hormones in another capillary network of the anterior pituitary gland. And these neurohormones are of two kinds. Okay, so what these hormones do, these neurohormones could be releasing hormones or it could be inhibiting hormones. Okay, the hormones produced by the hypothalamus could be releasing hormones or inhibitory hormones. And these hormones in turn control the pituitary gland, anterior lobe and posterior lobe of pituitary. Okay, look at the releasing hormones and inhibiting hormones by hypothalamus. This chapter has too many names of hormones which you have to memorize. Okay, and what are the releasing hormones? Releasing hormones are thyroid, okay, stimulating hormone, and its full name is releasing hormone. That what does it do? It stimulates thyroid gland, isn't it? How? What does it do? The hormone produced from pituitary gland go down to uh, the anterior lobe. Anterior lobe. So let's say that TSH. Okay, the TSH goes into anterior lobe and help anterior lobe to produce another hormone, which is TSH. The TSH go down to thyroid, help thyroid to produce thyroxine. Okay, thyroxine is produced by the thyroid gland. But for the thyroid gland, which is in your throat, to produce thyroxine, it needs this hormone, TSH. TSH stimulates thyroid gland. And what produces the thyroid TSH? It's produced by anterior lobe of pituitary gland. And for the anterior lobe to produce TSH, it needs a releasing hormone known as TSH. Okay, so learn this one because we have too many hormones. TSH releasing hormone, TSHRH. It is secreted by hypothalamus and is transported through hypophyseal portal system to the anterior lobe. In the anterior lobe of pituitary gland, TSH is synthesized. What is TSH? Thyroid stimulating hormone. And TSH enters thyroid gland and help thyroid gland to produce thyroxine. Okay, that's the first hormone. Okay, that's the next, right? Next one is anterior lobe. Again, secretes another hormone. It's called ACTH releasing hormone. This goes to the pituitary gland. Let's make a common diagram. Okay, look at the next releasing hormone. It's called adrenocorticotropic releasing ACTH hormone, releasing hormone. And it goes to the anterior lobe. In the anterior lobe, it produces hormone ACTH, adrenocortical hormone, which goes to the adrenal gland, which goes to cortex of adrenal gland, produce adrenaline, okay, and other hormones. We'll study that later. This is the next hormone. What is it? Adrenocorticotropic hormone. Okay. Then you find somatotrophic releasing hormone. Okay. So hypothalamus release somatotrophic releasing hormone, which goes to pituitary gland and help pituitary gland to produce growth hormone. Okay. Another one, the FSH, stimulating hormone. Hypothalamus produce FSH releasing hormone, and that enters the pituitary gland. Pituitary gland produce FSH. FSH enter the ovary to produce estrogen or even progesterone. Okay. Similarly, there is LH releasing hormone. Pituitary gland produce LH. LH enters ovary, help ovary to produce progesterone. So these are the two sex hormones in female. Okay. And in pregnant women, a hormone is produced. It's called prolactin releasing hormone. What is it? Prolactin releasing hormone. Okay. That goes to pituitary gland, releases prolactin, and that affects milk production. Okay. One more, melanocyte. Melanocyte. Where do you find melanocyte? On the skin. What is melanin? Melanin is the skin pigment. Melanin is a skin pigment. It's produced by melanocyte. So melanocyte stimulating hormone is produced by, the melanocytes. But the releasing hormone comes from pituitary gland. Hypothalamus. So melanocyte stimulating hormone, releasing hormone. Okay, that goes to the pituitary gland. What pituitary gland produces? Melanocyte stimulating hormone, which affect melanocytes of the skin. That affects your skin color. Okay, melanocyte releasing hormone. Okay, next is inhibiting hormone. Inhibiting hormones are like melanocyte inhibiting hormone. We call them IH, inhibiting hormone. Somatotrophic inhibiting hormone or somatostatin, prolactin inhibiting hormone. These are the hormones. I think there's another list here, which, yeah. So these are the releasing hormone. That's a table of releasing hormone. And when you write it, you must say RH, thyroid stimulating. Let me clear it up. So what are the two classes of hormones produced by the hypothalamus. These are the hormones of hypothalamus. The two classes of hormones are number one, releasing hormone. These are releasing hormone. These are inhibiting hormone. What are the releasing hormone? Thyroid stimulating hormone, releasing hormone. Adrenocorticotropic hormone, releasing hormone. And somatotropic hormone, releasing hormone. FSH, releasing hormone. LH, releasing hormone. Prolactin, releasing hormone. Melanocyte stimulating hormone, releasing hormone. These are the releasing hormones from pituitary gland. We have seen what do they stimulate. They all stimulate the same lobe, the anterior lobe of pituitary gland. And those are inhibiting hormone. One is MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone, inhibiting hormone. And this is somatostatin, which is somatotropic hormone, inhibiting hormone. And then there is prolactin, inhibiting hormone. So these are hypothalamic hormones, hormones produced by the hypothalamus. Okay, that's a pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is located on this bone. This bone is called sphenoid bone. What is it? Sphenoid bone. And the sphenoid bone has a cavity. Can you see the cavity? This is a cavity of the sphenoid bone. And this cavity is called sella turcica. What is it? Sella turcica. Okay. Sella turcica is the name of the cavity. And inside the cavity, you find the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is protected in the sella turcica, the cavity or sella turcica. Okay. So this is the location of the pituitary gland. Okay. If you look at this, these glands are almost in straight line with the eye, pituitary gland, and here you find the pineal gland too. On the top, you find hypothalamus and infundibulum, which is a stalk of the pituitary gland. There you can see pituitary gland, the anterior lobe. Okay, that's another name, adenohypophysis and neurohypophysis, posterior lobe. What's the other name? Pars distalis. Okay, and this one, pars nervosa. These are the two important parts of the pituitary gland. The middle lobe is highly reduced. So what do you find in adenohypophysis? Pars distalis, you find, okay, you will find the presence of um, portal system. There's a portal system. So hypothalamus releases releasing factors and portal vessel take it to hypophysis, okay, and that helps in the formation of hormones. But in neurohypophysis, the neurons extend into the posterior lobe, okay, and release hormone directly into posterior lobe. Remember the three lobes. Pituitary gland has three lobes, pars distalis, or it's known as adenohypophysis, or it's known as anterior lobe. So what's the other two names of anterior lobe? Adenohypophysis and pars distalis. And the posterior lobe is neurohypophysis or pars nervosa. And what's the major difference here? There is a portal system in anterior lobe. There's no portal system in posterior lobe. And anterior lobe has releasing factors released into the adenohypophysis and then it affects endocrine cells. Okay. So look at pars intermedia. It's highly reduced, but the MSH, melanocyte stimulating hormone, is actually coming out from pars intermedia. Okay. The only hormone from the pars intermedia. Okay. That's a summarized picture of all the hormones. Neurosecretory cell. So what do they do? Neurohormones. And these neurohormones enter a capillary network and passes through the veins and enter another capillary network. And in the second capillary network, it comes out and affect the cells. So what are the pituitary? What are those factors? They are releasing hormones. And pituitary gland produce these hormones: TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone; ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, which affect adrenal gland; FSH, LH. They affect testes or ovaries. Then there's growth hormone, which affects the whole body; prolactin, which affect only mammary glands during pregnancy; endorphins. Okay, endorphins are pain receptors in the brain. This is not mentioned in the reader. Only understand this one, endorphin. These are the hormones produced by the pituitary gland with the help of releasing hormones. Okay, that's again a summary. Hypothalamus through the neurosecretory cell. This is posterior pituitary gland. And what does posterior pituitary gland produce? Oxytocin and ADH. Oxytocin is the birth hormone. It's produced at the time of birth, prepares mammary glands, cause contraction of uterine muscles, and ADH affect kidney tubule. Okay. Now the Zoom will cut off because its time limit has reached. So I will just log off and log in. All right.